Welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning into these. I hope you're enjoying our free COVID entertainment that we've been doing. Reading my book, Kids on a Case of the 10 Grand Kidnapping. Turning into audiobook. We'll be shuffling things up a bit today and I'll be doing the reading. We're on chapter 7 here. Chapter 7 is called Go Away. After deciding what areas of Mount Raymore we should search, we broke into 4 groups. Now that we were paired off, we decided who should be responsible for each area. But we had the problem of starting from scratch each day. So George came up with the great idea of tenting each night and then continuing on the next morning. After hearing this, Corey piped in, or we could get a map of Mount Raymore and look at all the cabin locations on the map. Brilliant. Now why didn't I think of that? Kurt exclaimed sarcastically, throwing his arms up in the air. Great idea, Corey. Can you get a hold of a map like that? I asked, a little curious as to why she was only mentioning it now. She rolled her eyes impatiently. What? Do I have to do everything? Then she gave me a stupid look and snapped, Duh. They give you a map of Mount Raymore with all the cabin locations when you buy a cabin here. I sheepishly ground my toe into the dirt and was glad when Kurt chipped in. He took a stem of old grass in his hand and chewed on it as he sat on a scratchy old stump. When he spoke, he didn't even look up from the ground. Back off, Corey. We don't all have doctors for parents, so we can't all afford expensive cabins. I didn't know they gave you maps like that either. Ching was leaning against a tree had been silent for a while, but now he spoke up. If you're so smart, Corey, why didn't you mention this before? We have been planning all of this, and you've been silent about the map until now. Why? Hearing the accusatory tone in his voice, he looked at his feet and dug his toe nervously into the dirt. We all stared in shock, for Ching never spoke his mind. He was too timid to say what he thought. Corey just stood there a second, speechless, not really sure she had heard right. Then, realizing she had, she snapped back. Because I never thought of it before, and how dare you speak to someone of my standing like that? You're just a half-breed with divorced parents. Ching stood up from his spot against the ash tree. He took one step closer and glared angrily at her, a look of death in his eyes. Kurt quickly jumped off of his stump and stood in between Ching and Corey. Shut up, Corey. Just because you are a rich snobby brat doesn't mean you can assault Ching like that, Kurt snarled, defending his friend. Dave quickly jumped in before anything more could develop. Hey guys, we're trying to help Kim here, remember? Now cut it out. I'm not a snobby brat. He should take it back. Then don't act like one, Kurt snapped back. Kurt glared at them both and shouted, I said cut it out. Laverne backed Dave up. Guys, listen to Dave. We need to help Kim. Ching, still visibly angry, leaned against the tree. He crossed his arms to cover up the fact that he was so angry he was shaking, and he stood there scowling. Everyone went back to their stump, went back to where they had been. Corey pouting, and Kurt was sitting on his stump glaring at Corey. I stepped forward. Corey, you bring this map here tomorrow. As far as I'm concerned, this meeting is over, except for our planning tomorrow. Mary started writing down ideas about what we should do when we found the cabin. We argued and discussed the ideas for an hour. Finally, we decided that Corey would stay out of sight at the cabin and would use her dad's cell phone to call the police when they were needed. We would hide somewhere, and then George, Kurt, Ching, and I would create a diversion while Dave, Mary, and Laverne snuck inside to free Kim. It all sounded so easy, if only it could work. That night I was playing Super Sports Car Racing 2 and my dad shouted for me to go to bed. So I finished my current race and shut the machine off. Don't forget to clean up the machine, I heard my mom shout. I was about to, I lied. I went back in the living room and cleaned up my video game. I turned the lamp off and headed for my room. As I passed my parents' room, my dad said, Night, Ty. Good night, guys. I replied groggily. We love you, Tyler, my mom said sweetly. Uh-huh, I mumbled. I went to the washroom and got ready for bed. Then I slipped quietly into my room and closed the door. Turning around, I saw a large man with broad shoulders. A black hat and black clothes just materialized. He emerged from the shadows in the corner of my room. I was trying to see his face, but the light was not good enough. I went to take a step back, but he was already flat against my wall. Hello, Tyler, he whispered smugly. His voice sent a shiver down my spine. My heart was beating quickly and I felt faint, trying to scream out. I found that I could only whisper. This was like my worst nightmare coming true. The one where someone is chasing you and you try to run but can only move in slow motion. Don't even try to scream, brat, he whispered harshly. My eyes were as wide as saucers as I whispered, what do you want? Or at least I tried to. My throat was so dry that I'm not sure how much actually came out. Quiet, he said hoarsely. He hoarsely snapped, and I almost peed myself. I've been watching you closely, Tyler. I was across the street from the abandoned house with the last of our stuff when you led your little friends to our place. How you ever found out about our place, I don't know, but you'd better back off. While he was talking, my hand was sliding up the wall towards the light switch. If I could just get a look at his face, I would be able to tell the cops what he looked like. He must have noticed this, for he told me to put my hand back by my side. I was shocked and that he said it quite casually. When I lowered my now shaking hand, he continued, if you don't back off, there will be terrible consequences. Not only will I kill Kim, but I will personally kill your family. He chuckled maliciously, and I saw the glint of a wicked-looking knife as he pulled it out. I sucked in my breath, horrified. As he ran his finger over the black, shiny blade, I noticed a scar on his right hand. The whitened scar was on both the palm and back of his hand. I gulped as I thought how he must have gotten it, thinking a knife must have been stabbed through his hand. As for you, you will be sold into slavery on another continent. A boy like you would bring a good bit of money. He finished with a statement with a laugh, and disappeared quickly out my window. I whipped my light on and ran to the window. I didn't see anyone there, but moments later I heard an engine start up and saw a small black truck drive off. I tried to see the license plate, but to no avail. Closing my window, I locked it and crawled into bed. It took me a long time to fall asleep, scared as I was, but eventually I did drift off. I woke many times with a start, dreaming that scarred hand was about to drive a knife into me, or that the dark figure was going to haul me overseas to some foreign continent to make me work as a slave. When morning finally came, I felt more tired than when I went to sleep. My mom must have noticed because she asked me why I was so tired. I tried to brush her off and I acted like I was preoccupied by my pancakes. Tyler! Tyler! My dad shouted, getting my attention. When I looked up, he continued, answer your mother. What? I asked as if I hadn't heard. Why do you look so tired? Do I have to make your bedtime earlier? She asked. No, don't do that, I replied quickly. I'm just worried about Kim, that's all. This wasn't a complete lie, as I was worried about her, especially since I'd secretly had a crush on her for more than a year. Well, I think that's sweet, but I'm not buying it, she said, looking at me as if she could see all my plans. You're up to something, mister. You better not come home with another injury. I won't, Mom, I said, stuffing the last of my pancakes in my mouth. So you're still up to that little investigation. I'm warning you. You should let the police handle it, she said, starting to clean off the table. What investigation? My dad asked as he started to fill up the sink. Mayday, mayday. Now I'm dead from both my dad and my mom. My little brother got up from the table to help with the dishes and calmly said, he's looking into Kim's kidnapping. Hey, shut up, Frogface, I snapped angrily. Then I got up to leave, only to be stopped by my dad. Ty, you apologize right now. I stopped and glared at my little brother. Sorry. My dad then threw me a drying rag, which I caught and started drying dishes. Tyler, that's for the police to handle. Stay out of it. These guys can be ruthless, and I don't want you hurt. Understand? He looked at me wanting an answer. Uh-huh, I mumbled, putting the plates away. He threw me a stern look. I'm serious, Tyler. I'm listening. Now listen to me. You could get yourself killed. Never mind your friends and Kim. Now stay out of it. Besides, your being grounded starts today, my mom chipped in. I stopped drying and looked up. Oh, Mom, come on. You can't be serious. I'm afraid I am. Now let me check that cut on the back of your head. She had me sit down. Removing the bandage, she inspected my wound. Grabbing some peroxide, she cleaned it and then wrapped it back up. Today you need rest. My letting you out yesterday already broke the doc's orders. I sighed and got up, stormed off my room. Now what will we do? I thought as I lay on my bed, thinking, if I went on with the case and save Kim, we could make everyone happy, or I could end up a slave in some foreign country with no family. If I didn't go on the case, the police would never find them, and with their warrant rules and all the other hassles, Kim would probably be killed after they had the money. This was going to be a tough choice. After a lot of thinking, I decided to continue with the case, so I went to my door and locked it. Then I went and turned on my stereo. The sound of rock music poured into the room, and I hoped that it would trick everyone into thinking I was still here. A glance at my watch told me I had just enough time to get to Witchmaster's Hill. Looking out my window, I didn't see any truck or my parents anywhere, so I opened my window, tore off the bandage from my head, and grabbed my knife, walkie-talkie, and flashlight, and then slipped out. Stepping quietly on the roofing above our patio, I could hear my parents in the living room. I grabbed onto a rough tree branch and shimmied along it and down the tree. I had walked but a block when I heard a vehicle driving slowly behind me. Stopping to tie my shoe, I glanced back only to see the black truck with the man from last night driving. I gulped nervously, then stood up and walked on. Slipping my walkie-talkie out of my pocket, I pressed the button saying, "Truck, truck, come in." I was just 8 doors away from his place, and I hoped he hadn't left yet. I tried again, but to no avail. I stopped, pulled out my cell phone, and called his house. My mom answered the phone, his mom answered the phone, and I asked for Kurt. She said I was lucky, as he was just about to leave, and she put him on the phone. "Yeah," I heard him ask impatiently. "Hey, Kurt. Man, am I glad I caught you. Listen, I've got a problem." I explained the visit and that I figured it was the Scar guy from that Kim had mentioned in her note. "So you're chickening out on Kim?" he asked angrily. "No, listen, the guy is following me in a black truck. I am 4 doors down from your place. When I walk by, I need a distraction so I can get away." "Sure thing, Corey is here with me. We'll handle it." I then put my cell phone back in the pouch on my waist and walked on. As I walked by Kim's place, I heard him tell me to jump over the bush. A baseball flew over my head, and I heard a smashing sound as the windshield on the truck cracked. I dove over the bush quickly. Corey helped me up and said to Kurt, "Nice shot, man." We ran into the back alley and into the property on the other side. Scar was following the kid he had seen leading a group of boys to the place they had been keeping the girl. He had seen the kid sneaking out of his window. Now he was following him in his truck. The kid stopped suddenly and bent down to tie his shoe. Then he pulled out his cell phone and started talking. He finished talking, then hung up his cell phone. Scar slowly started driving forward as the kid started walking again. Just then a ball came flying over some bushes and smashed right into his windshield. He stopped and looked back for the kid, but the kid was gone. Angrily, he punched the steering wheel. The truck started forward and Scar drove around the block. He didn't know it, but he had just missed catching the kids running across the street. "That's it, kid. You pushed me too far," Scar sneered. He pulled up in front of the kid's house and got out of his truck. Walking across the front yard, he looked to see if anyone was watching. Seeing no one, he climbed the tree in front of the house and stepped onto the roof below the kid's window. Lifting the window, he looked around once again. He then slipped through and stepped directly into the room. He crept stealthily across the room, unlocked the door, and then opened it a crack. Looking across the hall, he saw the kid's younger brother run into his bedroom and shut the door. Scar opened the door and tiptoed down the hall. Stopping outside the little kid's door, he opened it a crack and looked inside. The brat was sitting on the floor in the far corner with his back to the door, playing with his cards. Scar slowly pulled out a handkerchief, a small glass container from his right coat pocket. Opening the top of the glass container, he poured some of the liquid onto the handkerchief and then closed it. Slipping the container back into his pocket, he then closed it. He cupped the handkerchief in his hand and quietly opened the door the rest of the way. He slowly walked up behind the kid. Reaching out, he slipped the handkerchief over the kid's mouth and nose. He held the boy's chest with his other hand, and the kid reached up and tried to pull his hand off, but soon he passed out. Once Scar felt him loosen and relax in his hands, he removed the handkerchief and slipped it away. He picked him up with in both his arms and carried him quietly down the hall. When he came up to his room of entry, he laid the kid down on the bed and closed the door behind him. Picking the boy up again, he walked to the window and lowered him onto the roof. He slipped through the window just after picking the boy up, stepped onto the thick branch he'd used to climb up. He balanced on the branch, carrying the kid in his arms. As he stepped forward to the end of the branch snapped and he almost fell. He caught his balance, walking foot in front of foot along the branch until he reached the tree trunk. He threw the kid over his shoulder and climbed down the tree. Looking around again, he crept across the lawn, opening his truck door. He set the boy in the passenger seat and slipped into the driver's seat. Scar reached across and buckled the kid in. Then, buckling himself in, he drove off to Mount Raymore. Tyler, Angela Bowen, my mom, called to me from outside my door. Oh, so we're not talking now. She turned the knob to come in. You know, Tyler, I thought you were more mature. She stopped dead. She didn't see me anywhere. Tyler. Oh, I should have known he wouldn't give up. She turned around on one heel and stormed from my room, calming herself down as she reached Rodney's room. She knocked on his door and opened it quietly. Rodney, you're awfully quiet in here. Is everything all right? She didn't see him in his room either, and she lost it. Pete, she shouted as she flew down the stairs with a whirlwind of anger. Pete Bowen, my dad, appeared at the bottom of the stairs. What, Angela? Is everything all right? My mom reached the bottom of the stairs. She stood right in front of him. Still fuming. Pete, Tyler's gone. He snuck out through his window, and this time he's dragged Rodney with him. He's still worried about Kim, and he won't stop until he's found. My dad frowned. No, he wouldn't drag Rodney into it. He would endanger himself, but not Rodney. As much as he finds Rodney annoying, he would die before he intentionally endangered Rodney. I think that Rodney probably followed him. My mom folded her arms worriedly. You're right. I just hope they don't get themselves killed. Then she put her hands on her hips. He's really dead this time. He won't be seeing daylight for a long time when I'm done with him. My dad laughed. He gets it from me, you know. I used to be the same way. If a girl I had a crush on had gotten kidnapped, I would have searched for her relentlessly as well. Boys will be boys. You say that yourself. My mom frowned and then she laughed too. You're right. He does have a crush on her, and you were a troublemaker as a kid. That's one of the things I loved about you, aside from the fact that my parents didn't want me to see you, which made it even more fun to sneak out and see you. Then she turned serious again. But this is my son, and it's different. He's still going to be punished severely. My dad went and grabbed the cell phone from the table and typed a message into the phone and hit send. Angela looked at him curiously. What are you sending him? My dad looked up at her and smiled. I told him to get his butt home. After a minute passed and he got no answer, he stopped texting. Either he's ignoring me or he doesn't have the cell phone on. I'm betting he's ignoring me, which means he is still working on his little case. As much as I'm trying to be mad, I still can't say I blame him. We're trying to keep him from saving the girl he likes. We arrived at Witchmaster's Hill 10 minutes late. Laverne looked at us and yelled, Where were you guys? We were beginning to think you were going to miss the show. So I explained that last night and how I had been followed. Then Kurt cut in. Then I hit the baseball and smashed the jerk's windshield. Then we ran here. We were interrupted by the sound of my cell phone ringing. Uh-oh. I looked at my screen. It was my parents' number with a message saying, get home now. Who is it? George asked. I put away my cell phone and said, my parents grounded me again and I snuck out to come here. They must have discovered I was gone. So are you going home? George asked. Nope, we gotta save Kim. Besides, I'm already in trouble for sneaking out, I replied. At that moment I heard an engine start and turned around quickly in panic. I saw a large navy blue 11-seated van parked just down the hill. Oh, sorry guys, I forgot to tell you, my sister decided she would drive us to Mount Raymore. Laverne said to Kurt, Corey, and me. Is she allowed to drive? I asked curiously, looking at Laverne sister Elaine, who was sitting in the driver's seat of the van. Like Laverne, Elaine had dark red curly hair, but unlike Laverne, she didn't straighten it. She just turned 16 and got her license last week. We all ran down the hill and piled into the big van. Thanks for tuning in, guys.